Hey, look! A gold coin. It's a chocolate candy.
This reminds me of something. The Gilded Age.
What is the chief end of man? To get rich. In what way? Dishonestly if we can. Honestly if we must.
Mark Twain called the late 19th century the Gilded Age, saying that the period was shining on the surface but corrupt underneath. This volatile period is often characterized by the rise of greedy robber barons, such as Andrew Carnegie and John Rockefeller, anti-immigrant sentiment, and scandalous politics. However, several laws were passed aiming to curb government corruption, business discrimination, and the rise of monopolies. This time period also represents America's transformation into an emerging world power, when an agrarian community steadily transformed into an urban society dominated by modern industrial corporations. Industrialization created a national transportation and communication network, while corporations dominated business organizations. From the ashes of civil war, America emerged as an economic powerhouse.
New technologies, growing cities, improved transportation, and financial innovations allowed America's economy to grow by more than 400% by the end of the 19th century.
Millions of Americans clustered to the cities and left the countryside in search of excitement and new wonders, such as electric trolleys, bicycles, bridges, skyscrapers, department stores, telephones, and electric lamps. By the turn of the century, the farming share of gross domestic product decreased by 14%. The percentage of people living in cities surged by more than 200%, and the miles of railroad track increased by 7 times. The total national wealth increased by more than $70 billion, while the national wealth per capita skyrocketed.
Did the financial status of the average American benefit from these new unprecedented levels of wealth?
Unfortunately, the answer is no. During the 1890s, industrial hours were long, and wages were low in factories that were typically dangerous and unhealthy. The nation was divided in a society in which a small group of emerging industrial and financial aristocracy indulged in excessive spending and lived in sumptuous homes, while on the other side, a lot of families struggled just to survive. The subdivision of labor into its unskilled parts left many workers with little hope for occupational or social mobility. Because of this, thousands of workers tried to organize and unionize frequently, shaking the country with long and violent confrontations. Industrialization lured immigrants from all over the globe into major U.S. cities, especially from the southern and eastern parts of Europe and Asia.
America is known to foreigners as the land where you'd get rich. There's gold on the sidewalk, all you have to do is pick it up.
In reality, most newcomers realized that they had to live in slums, the poorest, dirtiest, and most dangerous of all neighborhoods. They were an ideal labor supply for industrialists, taking the worst jobs at low wages as unskilled laborers. Political machine bosses such as William Boss Tweed in New York also took advantage of immigrants, promising them assistance in exchange for their votes. Many nativists were hostile to the European newcomers, fearing that immigrants were stealing their jobs and wages. Their illiteracy, race, religious beliefs, and poverty were the main targets of attack. The Chinese received an even harsher treatment. The Chinese were willing to work many hours on railroad construction in the West at low wages, pushing American laborers to ask Congress to pass the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882, completely banning Chinese immigration to the United States. However, there were some Americans that received immigrants with open arms. In 1889, Jane Addams founded Hull House to help poor immigrants adjust to their lives in the United States. With almost 1 million immigrants coming every year, America became a melting pot of people with varied culture, language, traditions, and practices. As we recall, the Gilded Age was characterized as a period of underlying corruption below the economic prosperity. However, there were many attempts by American reformers to seize fraudulent transactions and overpowering corporations. Now, the question is,
were efforts to suppress political corruption successful during this period?
We will discuss this taking into account 3 different criteria: government support, business management, and direct action. As expected, people sought relief, order, and justice from the government to get rid of all this corruption. Unfortunately, the latter itself is too busy entangled with its own scandals, oil systems, and instabilities. The people who led the country during this period were known as the Forgotten Presidents. They include Andrew Johnson, Ulysses Grant, Rutherford B. Hayes, James Garfield, and Chester Arthur. Workers pleaded for tighter control of dominating private monopolies. However, America's capitalist ideology of laissez-faire allowed corporations to run by themselves without any government regulation or interference. An exception was the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890, the first measure passed by Congress to regulate trusts. Unfortunately, this legislation rarely worked for its intended purpose and instead was more effectively used against trade unions. Without the government's help, the people did not sit with crossed arms. A new political party supported by farmers emerged as the Populist Party, which demanded nationalization of railroads, equality in the local and state tax systems, and more access to money to the common people through a free coinage of silver. However, the Populists eventually faded from American politics after the loss of the Democratic nominee William Jennings Bryan in 1896.
Based on the analysis of the previously mentioned criteria, we agreed that the answer to the question is no.
Corruption spread like an unstoppable disease during the Gilded Age.
Thanks for watching.